our eyes, but that's a tiny section of the vast spectrum that exists out there. You can have many other wavelengths or other colours which we don't perceive. So if we go to the red end of the spectrum, we see up to nice red colours, beautiful sunset colours, say for instance. But beyond the red, we have something we call infrared. Now, our eyes don't detect that, but our bodies can. We feel infrared as the sensation of heat. The skin has detectors for that. It's not what our eyes see. It's like colour that our eyes don't see. Beyond that, we move out into microwaves and radio waves with much longer wavelengths of up to several meters in length. And those sort of wavelengths of light, or electromagnetic radiation, are other colours, if you like, that we can't detect, but we cannot with our eyes. But we can detect those with radio telescopes. And if we come down to the other end, beyond the blue and the violet, we have ultraviolet, which again we don't sense, although it affects our skin by giving us sunburn, for instance. We can go further down to shorter and shorter wavelengths. We have such things as gamma rays and X-rays. So this whole spectrum of light is a series of colours, of which we only detect a very, very narrow part, extremely narrow part of that whole spectrum of light.
Oh, look at the
STS-UV. During the 1990s, NASA carried out space shuttle missions and recorded footage like this. In this footage of what seems to be a formation of objects moving over the Earth, one object can be seen escaping the atmosphere as we hear NASA explaining the technology that they use to capture these images.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
For the red and ultraviolet, near and
Being
extreme.
taken with the GLOW camera. Housed in Endeavour's payload bay is one of 4 different experiments that are hitching a ride with the International Extreme Ultraviolet Hitchhiker payload.
Ultraviolet extreme.
A GLOW camera is a nickname used for the technology that can capture things which cannot be seen by the human eye, but are visible in the ultraviolet light spectrum.
Down here on the surface of the Earth, the atmosphere limits what radiation can get to the ground.
Exactly.
Optical light can
Got
obviously
a
get to the ground.
structure,
That's what we
don't
see with our eyes. We've evolved to accept that radiation which comes to us from the sky, from the sun, and from other stars. Some radio wavelengths
look at that
get through the surface of
telescope.
the Earth. Most other wavelengths are blocked, so we're protected from a vast amount of the ultraviolet wavelengths and the gamma rays and X-rays. So
Those are
this
bad
is
ones.
an aspect of more recent astronomy, which we've had to do from space. So the space age has allowed us to look at gamma rays from space and X-rays from space and ultraviolet radiation from objects in space.
Ultraviolet, near and extreme.
STS-80, November 1996. This mission has given NASA fascinating footage of what appears to be UFO sightings, visual phenomena which NASA have explained away as space ice and debris. We see in the recording peculiar objects that seem to be moving over Africa. The most notable visualization that occurs is an object that enters the camera's shot in a transparent or almost corporeal state, only to shine into existence once it finds its position within the atmosphere. Furthermore, there seem to be multiple objects which appear to hold a circular formation, with the final object moving into the center and lighting up. The illuminated objects seem to stay cohesively in this formation, blinking, with the few along the top ascending back into orbit. Could space junk or ice perform these kinds of maneuvers? The seemingly deliberate nature of the movement of these objects seems near impossible to explain away as naturally occurring phenomena. Former NASA employee James Oberg has determined the objects to be just ice, which can be illuminated based on near-Earth conditions.
Bullshit.
Other scientists like Dr. Jack Kasher say that this explanation is impossible.
NASA has had a number of cases where they have dealt in some fashion with UFOs. And of course, that is, I'm sure, classified and kept secret and hidden from the public.
Throughout NASA's history, correspondents have been steadfast and actively denied any UFO activity in space. However, we will see that during the course of over 20 STS missions, NASA's own space cameras have caught what is arguably the most interesting UFO footage.
Statistically, it's a certainty there are hugely
Dory
advanced
Moncrief.
civilizations, intelligences, life forms out there.
Yeah,
I
he's
believe they're
shit.
so advanced that they're even doing interstellar travel. I believe it's possible.
But Musgrave,
There
years
is
later,
real-
he seemed amused by them and definitely not threatened by them. So, you know, all the astronauts get trained in these phenomena.
Suddenly I look up and I see these 5 lights and they seem to fly by.
One of our pioneer astronauts was Brigadier General James
Look at his
McDivitt.
structures in
In
the background,
1965,
for
General
God's
McDivitt
sake.
spent 4 days in outer space as command pilot of Gemini 4. General McDivitt, have you ever seen a UFO?
Yes. During my flight on Gemini 4 in 1965, I saw an object in space fairly close to our spacecraft that I could not identify. It looked to me like maybe the upper stage of another rocket. I tried to take some pictures of it, but unfortunately the pictures did not come out properly. We never were able to identify what it was, and all of our ground radar tracking data indicated that there shouldn't have been another object anywhere near us at the time.
Brigadier
There is
General.
abundant evidence that we are being contacted, that civilizations have been visiting us for a very long time. And it was only later when I began to embrace the UFO phenomenon, the cover-up, studying all these organizations that were covering up, and having some direct experience myself as a researcher, no longer beholden to funding from NASA or the university environment,
Don't
that
not
I
watch so man.
began to double check some of Carl's work, and I saw, for example, the famous face in Cydonia on Mars, photographed by Viking in 1975, which shows this gigantic human mesa that resembles a human face about a mile across. Carl and I debated this, and it was very, very disappointing to me, because not only was Carl wrong, he also fudged data. He published a picture of the face in Parade magazine, a popular article saying that the face is just a natural formation.
Ah,
But he doctored the picture to make it not look like a face. And I began to realize just directly, from a scientific point of view, not only hearsay, that this man was colluding with NASA, that there might be more to this than before.
There's some people at NASA that are working on material that's classified, so you would have different levels of security clearances and compartmentalized stuff, especially at the top secret level. It was the same in Livermore, although I did have a security clearance, and most of the stuff that I worked on was compartmentalized because, well, you had to have a need to know, and they let you know enough about it, but it was not shared between departments. That material is not.
Even though there have been credible, educated scientists such as Dr. Edgar Mitchell backing the theory that we are being visited, mainstream scientists like Dr. Andrew Jacob believe that all of this technology is being used to detect quasars or other scientifically accepted space phenomena.
bullshit.
Andrew believes we are building monumental technology to simply learn more about our universe than we ever did.
Radio telescopes see things which are so
Fucking
faint.
idiot.
They have to be extremely large. Sometimes you might combine multiple radio telescopes together.
They
You
tell
need more
you, they
information.
tell you
Big
not
project
to
in the
open your
Australian
mouth.
Africa and in
Fucking
Southern Africa
idiot.
is the SKA project, the Square Kilometre Array, concentrated in Western Australia, it's spread across the whole country, and also
Look at
there'll be another
that
segment of it in
shit,
Southern Africa.
golly.
Eventually they'll be working together and to produce a telescope almost the size of the Earth, with a large collecting
You tell
area.
me you
It's
cannot
an
see
extremely
shit.
sensitive telescope. It's designed to detect pulsars, designed to detect potential emissions of aliens
Go
out there.
balls.
If they discover a signal, that protocol tells them
I'm fucking
what they'll
saying
do.
the shit is right here in your
Who
head.
they'll contact first and when they'll release
Oh
it.
man.
The protocol says that it will be released publicly. The knowledge will become public. It won't stay
Bullshit.
private.
You're such
You've also
a
got many people
liar.
involved in these programs, and people tell stories, people tell people things. No one is going to be able to keep it quiet if anyone finds a signal from elsewhere. for even any evidence,
You're
whether it's
not gonna
intelligent
find
or not.
shit that way.
Finding any
Fuck.
evidence of life elsewhere in the universe will be known.
Yeah, it's
It won't
disgusting.
be kept quiet. There's no way you could do that even if you wanted to, I'm sure.
Go to the bedroom, man.
Top secret stuff could be, for example, any craft that the astronauts saw when they were up on the moon. And there were code words that would be used in that type of situation.
Santa
There
Claus.
was an incident with the Space Shuttle Discovery where Don Ratch, who is a UFO researcher, was listening. He liked to listen to the shuttle talking back and forth with Houston. After an hour and a half, he heard one of the astronauts say, "We have a fire." Maybe they had a fire, maybe they didn't. Nobody seemed to be getting excited. And UFO researchers think that what happens in that situation is that
Talking
they have
in
spotted
codes.
a UFO or some kind of extraterrestrial spacecraft, and that's a code that they use
Right.
to describe that. So he sat down right away and started recording.
Alien spacecraft from
And
the
a couple
observer.
minutes later, he heard someone on that same channel he'd been listening to saying, and this is a direct quote, "Houston, this is Discovery. We still have the alien spacecraft under observance." NASA was presented with that. They denied that that was an astronaut, although it was on that same channel. I guess you need about 20 words for a voice print analysis, and there are only 13 words, so we could not prove that it was somebody at NASA saying that, but it's kind of fishy because it was on that same channel that Don Ratch had been listening to for a couple hours. That would have to be a very classified topic because anything like that with UFOs would be classified to some extent. And I know a number of astronauts have seen UFOs, but they're very reluctant to talk about them.
Yeah, because they won't
STS-73, Mission Day 3, October 21st, 1995. Astronaut Catherine Coleman is seen peering out a capsule window when she is heard saying this.
We have an unidentified flying object.
The communication goes silent. It is well known that the space shuttle has two radio channels, one for public broadcasts and another which is an encrypted channel for the Department of Defense. It remains possible that the missing part of this transmission was sent on the encrypted channel.
If there are code words, then I think it's pretty clear the astronauts would have to know them before they go up into orbit. And then if they use them, fine, if they see something.
We see a space debris? Really? That don't look like a space debris. Look at that deal.
Another light going by on the ground there.
Check it out. A secondary object.
Could have been a star bell.
Hey, Roger.
Yeah,
To a
start
different
moving
camera angle,
around.
we get a little view of the Astro 2 telescopes moving off screen now as the camera is panned upward, and gives us a look at the sky above Endeavour with stars visible
Look at the object
on
moving.
this black and white camera, a low light sensitive camera. But we now have lost.
That would have to come, I would think, from some astronauts being debriefed and mentioning that they had seen something, or else that NASA suspects that it's possible that they might see something, and so they develop some code words to use.
STS-63, another interesting piece of footage with some equally interesting commentary. NASA claimed these to be ice crystals that look like a bed of diamonds. However, when observing this triangular formation of objects on the horizon, they seem to be entering the Earth's atmosphere at a slow pace. And based on the distance from the ISS, these objects are large enough to be prominent at such a distance.
There's no eyes. Oh my God.
Columbia Houston, we're looking at our payload bay camera, and it looks like a lot of moonlight glinting off the ocean, a whole sparkling bed of diamonds out there. Is that a real picture, or are we just getting some video fuzz?
Yeah, he still will record that. That's some